Right, well, hey, welcome everyone to our Rest for the Weary podcast. My name is Matthew Fong. I'm one of the pastors at Coops Plains Evangelical Church. And for this podcast, for this episode, I'm joined by my good friend and lead pastor here, Iggy Wong. Brother, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Feels a bit odd being here.
Yeah,
in our mezzanine studio. Yeah.
But it's great that we can do this. I mean, you know, we've got our sermon series running on Sunday, which you just launched it off on Sunday.
Yeah.
But this podcast, we're hoping will run parallel to our teaching series so that we can really engage in more depth, particularly, I think, with the practical sides of what it means to be good at resting. Now, brother, tell me talking about rest, tell me about your ideal day off, no boundaries of money, of whoever you want to spend it with, where you can go anywhere.
Yeah, I'm quite a simple man, so my ideal day off doesn't take much money, I think. It just means having no agendas. That's a key part of it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree. No agendas, no things to rush to, and I love nature, so that's why I got aquariums. Love aquariums. A bit nerdy, I know, but you know, I love God's creation. So it would be just out in nature somewhere, whether it's just a lovely day at the beach or, you know, having a bit of a hike through some forest, up a bit of a mountain, you know, with the family, leaching and the kids. I think that's a really nice day, you know, and just enjoying God's creation.
Yeah, great. Well,
How about you, man?
For me, look, I would probably spend the day, I'd start off with a good book in the morning, like having a bit of a relaxed morning. To start off, I'd probably, take the kids to the beach maybe, go have brunch with my wife or something like that. But I'd definitely end by playing some sport in the afternoon and then some board games at night, because I just love having some quality
playing
time
some touch footy
with people.
Not many people know Matt and I used to be part of championship touch footy teams. Well, I don't know if they're championship.
We're close to championship.
Yeah, but now we're old and we're both injured, so
and broken.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's talk about rest, right? Because rest, like as we've been talking about doing this series, it's really clear that everyone's really keen for it and that it's a huge issue. I think we all know that it's a big issue in our lives. Why is it such a big issue in our particular cultural moment?
Oh, there's so many factors that make rest hard. I think there's a sense that we feel like we need to rest, but we find it difficult. It's, you know, let's just put out, COVID's been a big one. Yeah, hasn't that just exhausted everyone in terms of, you know, the constant change, the trauma that's come from sickness and, you know, even for some people losing people in the midst of a pandemic, just the social isolation with lockdowns. There's lots of factors there. But I think also just our work culture, especially in our, it just keeps, the pace just seems to keep going. You know, I think there's increased pressure to perform, otherwise, you know, someone else is going to take your job there. And, you know, a big one, I think, is technology. You know, I think technology just, it means you can work anywhere now, and there's expectation that you work anywhere. But also there's a downtime thing where, you know, a lot of our downtime's on screens, but is that really downtime? Because sometimes we walk away feeling more exhausted than we did when we started, you know. So technology is a huge thing. Like, there's so many factors, Because
it's really, I mean, those apps and things, they draw us into their web, don't they? Like Facebook, everything wants us to spend time on them, and I think we all feel that urge, that draw, and you know,
and it makes us feel good for a little bit, you know, that hit of dopamine or whatever when we get a refresh and a new update or whatnot. But in the end, we walk away feeling refreshed or more tired. Yeah.
So I think that's definitely all the factors that are out there. I mean, tell us, personally for you, what's your journey been like with rest?
Oh, rest is, you know, I like to pride myself on saying that I'm pretty good at rest, but, you know, pride comes before the fall, doesn't it? You know, so I have, ever since right from the start of training for ministry, when I was doing my ministry apprenticeship and things like that, I made sure I had pretty clear boundaries. You know, when I was at Bible college of, you know, this is when I'm studying, this is when I'm working, and then this is time for the family. Because I definitely don't want to become another statistic of a ministry family where my kids and my wife just, you know, hated the church because it took their husband away. So I made sure that I had those boundaries in place from early on, and I think I was pretty good at keeping to them. But, you know, as I shared with the congregation last week in my sermon, I've definitely come through a few periods recently where I've just felt completely spent and, you know, on the edge of burnout, even with having those things in place. And I think there's a lot of factors there, you know, just COVID was a big one. Just the pressures of pastoral ministry, the responsibilities piling up, and me not getting the break that I needed at that particular time, things like that. But yeah, I've definitely gone through patches where I just know that I haven't maybe listened to my body. I haven't depended on God enough. I think that was a big one, and just kept trying to push through in my own strength. Yeah.
I mean, tell us, how is it when we do think about those struggles, and I totally relate to almost all of the struggles which you described. It does seem to me, though, that we get a lot wrong about rest.
Yep.
I mean, what do you think are some of the things that we actually just don't quite get right about rest?
Yeah, I think there's different types of rest, isn't there? Like, there's different categories of rest that we can think through. So maybe, probably the most common ones is we just think about physical rest. Oh, we need to sleep. We need, essentially we need to stop. We need to stop working. We need to sleep. But there's a lot of different categories in terms of a mental tiredness that we have as we are constantly thinking and processing things, and emotional tiredness that comes from relationships and difficult relationships especially. That's extremely tiring. And of course there's that spiritual rest, which is a big focus of our series. As we think about our relationship with God, they're just some factors. Have I missed any? Do you think there's other types of rest that?
When I think about, potentially, I think often rest, my mind immediately naturally just jumps to leisure.
Yes.
So I kind of go, well, rest is Netflix.
Yes.
Rest is gaming. Yep. Rest is holiday, going away to a tropical island and eating too much food. And I think that's a hollow rest. That's sort of a surface. Not that any of those things are bad. In fact, we're going to discuss some of those during this podcast. But when it doesn't come from that deep sense of spiritual rest, then I think all those things are like sugar hits that keep us going for like that tiny bit before we need another holiday.
That's right. They're power reflections of what we actually need in one sense. Yeah.
So let's get to that then. What would we say is a definition of rest, particularly as according to the Bible?
So a really important question. Obviously, in my first sermon that I gave last week, we had a look at the creation account from Genesis 1 and going into chapter 2, the start of chapter 2. And I think we saw there God's creation pattern. He created, he looked at it, he said it was good, and he did that for 6 days, and then he got to the end of the 6th day, which was the creation of humans, and at the end of that day he said it was very good. And then we see in the start of chapter 2 of Genesis that he then says he stops working. He rests, and he is satisfied with his creation. Only when that's all complete and everything's very good can he actually stop. Now that's not to say that God doesn't do anything from here on. He's completely tapped out. He's stopped from his work of creating. But what I believe that we see there is rest actually has at its core satisfaction. If God at rest is his satisfaction with his creation. Because when you think about it, God doesn't need a rest. He's not like us. He's not a human. This is God we're talking about. He rests so he can enjoy and delight in his creation. And I think a key part of that enjoyment and delight is relationship with us humans. Because I think only when humans come into the world does he say, yes, now things are complete. It's not like he needs us. It's not like he's lonely or something like that, but he actually delights in that relationship that he has with us, and he allows us to participate in that. So long way of saying, I think rest, bigger picture rest, that definition is a satisfied relationship between God and his creation. And when we participate in that satisfied relationship, that's when we actually find the rest that we were made for.
See, I think that's so significant, though, isn't it? Because when you do just go, rest is just holidays, leisure, recreation, you're actually missing the bigger, broader cosmic picture of rest, God and his creation and his relationship with us. And that's such a much more deeply, existentially satisfying kind of rest. But as we think about that, that I think in lots of ways does build the foundation to actually then live a life of rest, doesn't it? As we think about our work lives, family lives, the modern digital world, even. How do those two things relate? God's rest and me learning how to rest today?
Yeah, that's a big question. There's lots of practical elements that, I think the podcast will help us to explore. What is rest? Am I allowed to rest like this? Can I just have fun? Does everything do I have to read my Bible every time I want to rest? Sort of thing. Lots of questions to ask there. But I think it helps us to see that, we need to get this right before we put everything else flows out of this, because this is what we were made for. So we really need to look at, when we think about living the Christian life, we need to look at how God made us, and this before sin came into the world. This is not just like a byproduct of like a concession or something. God made us to rest in relationship with him, to enjoy and delight in that relationship with him. And also realizing this is where we're headed, to new creation. Rest with God, relationship with God. So that's got to affect the way we rest now. So if we're missing that, if we're missing that good, satisfied time in relationship with God in our lives now, then, all the other rest isn't going to even touch on that, because this is what we're made for, deep rest for our souls. So I think we just got to get that piece in place first. If we don't have that, then I think all the other rest is not going to come near. And I think even as we, as I think about, even as we rest by other means, like leisure, for example, that links to that, because, our leisure can't just be a selfish, inward-focused enjoyment of things. It has to link to God and giving thanks to him and giving glory to him for his creation that we can enjoy as well. Like, if you don't actually have that view of who God is and our relationship with him, then all those other pieces of rest will become quite selfish as well, I think.
I can see so many links when you get that picture of rest to suddenly the way I think about my work and my need to perform, or my need to meet people's expectations, or with my family, or there's so many different ways in which, when you get that foundation right, it actually totally transforms the way you think about those parts of life, and I think can lead to a more restful life overall.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, even for myself, the irony is I'm feeling really tired right now. And this series has made me reflect a lot about why is that so. I could probably sleep a little bit better, but it's not terrible. I could exercise a little bit more, things like that. But I think at the core of it is I don't think I've been getting that good quality time with God. I've neglected that because I've been so busy trying to get stuff done for church, ironically. And I think that is a big factor of me feeling not refreshed, even if I get a good night's sleep, for example. And I've been challenged myself, to have that reshape my rest.
Great. Well, brother, thanks for sharing actually some of your own personal journey with that. Let's say this podcast is actually going to be largely about tackling some of those practical issues. Our next episode is going to be about rest and our physical bodies, talking about things like exercise and sleep and what we eat, and all those things actually do reflect something of our rest again as well. So we'll be tackling that next. But then throughout the series, we want to tackle lots of those issues, things like family, things like our work. And so we're going to be teasing that out. So next we've got a GP coming along to actually help us think through rest for our bodies. But, hopefully, Iggy, will get you back on at some stage and we'll tackle some more issues here. It's great to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Great. So otherwise, guys, would love to see you back on the podcast for our next episode. We'll catch you then. This is Rest for the Weary podcast. I'm Matthew Fong. This is Iggy Wong, and it's been great to have you on with us.